Coalesce, Art of the Possible, digital broadcaster, CNBC TV 18.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Coalesce 2024, Deloitte's flagship property, which brings together industry leaders and alliance partners to offer a fresh and innovative way to collaborate and co-create possibilities together. It is not just an event, it is a committed journey to push beyond and explore the art of possible. This year, the goal is to convert growth possibilities into actionable steps. Growth is a top priority for most organizations striving to enhance revenue and generate positive stakeholder value. Today, we talk about the 3 C's: capacity, capability, and culture that form the foundation for creating a resilient, adaptable, and high-performing organization. Each of these elements contribute to scaling businesses efficiently, fostering innovation through talent, and aligning company culture with long-term objectives. Joining me for this very special chat, special gentleman, Anandorup Ghose, Partner, CHRO, Program Leader, Deloitte India. Andy, as everybody calls you, welcome to the show. Kaushik, Chief Human Resources Officer with HT Media, a very huge conglomerate. And of course, Achyuta Ghosh, Senior Director and Head of Insights with NASSCOM. Welcome, gentlemen. Andy, if I may start with you. Everybody is trying to concentrate on scalability with restructuring their operation models. It's not so easy. Having said that, everybody is trying to look at whether it's GenAI or upskilling their employees or looking at better managing their data. When we talk about the 3 C's, what are the classic challenges that people are facing at the moment in order to perhaps scale everything altogether?
So I think basically the reason why we decided this particular topic of 3 C's is exactly like you described it. It's a confluence of 3 challenges for organizations. First of all, it's the fact that there is a changing operating model that companies are looking at, and that's fundamentally because companies have realized that you cannot solve problems with functional thinking. I am a technology person, or I am a finance person, HR person. That kind of thinking does not solve problems anymore. That can only happen when people think together or work together. The emergence of cross-functional teams, etc., around it. The second is, and this is well acknowledged across every part of the economy, politics, governance, etc., is that India has a skill development challenge.
True.
We have a gap with regard to how many people we are able to absorb into our workplaces that are trained and capable to start working from the word go, or even when they're coming into the workforce, the amount of effort that's required to upskill them with whatever is changing around. And then finally, when all of these things are happening, when you have a structure change happening, when you don't have the right kind of skill sets available, when you're investing a lot of time in training, when there is also growth at the same time in the economy, naturally it creates tension within organizations, and therefore the question of culture. What do you do with organizations with regard to ensuring there is a balance between them while you're driving growth, but constantly working towards building something up for the future?
How in the past were companies working in silos? And why suddenly now we feel that there has to be much more collaboration? What classically has moved from the times that we were in to now that now if you don't catch up with it, things are going to be very difficult for you?
So I'm going to take a guess here, but how many times do you hear the word BCP nowadays? You don't, is my guess, because BCP was a huge thing till a few years back, when everybody was saying that we need to plan for continuity, etc.
Right.
People don't talk about it anymore because there is so much disruption anyway that you really cannot plan for continuity beyond for next 6 months or 12 months. And when you have disruption, you cannot have functional thinking solve for disruption. I might have a challenge in my finance processes, but just the finance team can't solve for it, because unless I get the technology guys into it, or I get my salespeople into it, that finance problem can't get solved. And that's because, fundamentally, I think that's because of the nature of speed of change, to a large extent also driven by technology. And technology, if you think about it, is a horizontal that cuts through everything.
True.
And therefore, if one part changes, the entire organization has to meet that change.
I'll take leave from there, and Achyut, come to you. You know, when you're talking to all the tech companies, and they are looking at their capability standards or capability issues, AI and automation are two fields that are understood, misunderstood, growing before you can catch up with them. So what are the challenges there? And when you're talking about collaborations and people coming in together, what are some of the things that you're looking at to achieve? Maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4.
If you look at the Indian tech industry, we employ about 5.5 million odd people, direct employment, right? If you look at technology itself, Mugdha, it's a very fast evolving field, right? I mean, 10, 15 years ago, you have web development, SQL, IT networks, those were hot. And today you have seen, digital, cloud, AI, low code, no code, cybersecurity, edge computing. These are new service lines that have come in, right? What this has actually led to is, the first thing is that the disruption in the skilling itself, right? So certain skills, certain functions used to do, for example, programming, has changed the way you do it. Customer experience has changed the way you do it because technology has come in, right? Testing, software testing, how do you do? There, automation, AI plays a big, big role. So basically, how you're delivering this service, infrastructure moving to the cloud. These are trends that have actually changed the way skills are shaping. Interestingly, if you compare India versus rest of the world, India, the demand-supply gap is actually lowest in terms of jobs available and people available, right? The gap between that. Compared to other countries, the gap is there, but it is the lowest. But the technologies that you mentioned, Mugdha, AI, big data, analytics, there the gap is huge. It's almost 50%. So we have a challenge, right? We have a challenge. So what are organizations doing around it? I think organizations are pervasively skilling their employees. And it's not only the fresh employees, it's also the experienced employees. How are they doing it? They're doing it through a mixture of in-house trainings, which are more foundational in nature, and then external trainings, which are more expert level trainings. So that creates the collaboration ecosystem that we are talking about. So there's a strong government push also, right? So NASSCOM runs this Future Skills Prime program where we have about 19.5 lakh people already signed up, out of which about 8.2 lakh people have enrolled for courses. 1.28 crore batches have been disbursed on the platform. There are 2,000 institutions on it, academic institutions, corporate are also there. 12 states have signed up. So I think initiatives like this actually drive the capability building to a large extent. And what it is leading to, the main point is, it's changing the way you look at people. You're moving into a skill-based hiring model rather than an experience-based or a formal degree-based, right? Sure. I mean, you need to be an engineer with 10 years of experience to be a manager. Today, that probably... It doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter now for a lot of companies. They're looking at whether you have the relevant skills or not. That is number one priority. Your years of experience, your education, I think that takes number 2, number 3. So I think this shift is very interesting to catch.
Paras, if I may get you in and talk about HT Group, I don't know where to start from because so much has changed. Now there are so many different consumers. People are consuming your product and services in a very different way. How does analysis of all this come together? What are the kind of data points you're looking at? And how quickly are those changes sort of coming in the way you work?
You see, and COVID did a lot of that as well.
Course.
The audience preferences have
industry,
drastically changed. But for capacity or the demand surges that happen, there are basically 3 things that we focus on, and I think almost all media organizations today focus on. One will be people. So the people, when I say, is it's a very strategic and a dynamic workforce planning, wherein it's not a set of people just doing that work. You tap onto a lot of freelancers, you tap onto a lot of gig economy workers to come in at the right time, to kind of ensuring that that capacity is there, and we are able to, in a manner of speaking, making sure what the audience wants is reaching to them.
Right.
Second one comes is technology, wherein there were days when, you remember, we had to go to the office to file a story, right? Today, technology, cloud computing is helping us file a story from wherever you are.
Correct.
We are training our folks on mobile journalism, so they are able to pick the video stories and kind of putting it there. So technology has been a good enabler. Lastly, how much ever it sounds like a cliche, is the process. And the standard operating procedure, SOPs, are well defined that, hey, this is the way it's going to work, so that we have the right editorial intervention, we have the right kind of stories, making sure the audience preferences are kept in mind, and a lot of that flows in perfectly. So people, process, technology is something that helps us in ensuring the demand surge and the capacities that we have is able to solve for it.
Zandy, we typically talk about the workforce. Is the workforce ready for the change? Is the new workforce that one is, of course, working with pan-generational. So, there is a lot of, you have wokeism at the start of it, and you have these biases that are already existing. Then, of course, everybody needs to be upskilled. How do you plan people? How, succession planning is one, but how do you also work on their mindsets? How do you tell them that this is the new process? You will have to work with these teams, and without that, it ain't going to happen. What are the challenges there?
If you look at the multiplier impact of technical or functional learning, it's always lower than the multiplier impact on yourself or your organization on soft skills training. So soft skills training gives you a far longer and far larger impact on your career or your organization, etc. There are these new set of skills that are becoming important right now.
Right.
But 3 years down the line, all of these skills might be totally irrelevant. So this training that the person is going through right now might become absolutely useless for the person. But if the person is going through a training of being more adaptable to change, going through experiences that make them more adaptable to change, more agile, it's in their thinking, etc., that's going to have a much longer impact on their lives. And that, but unfortunately, that is also the most difficult training to provide.
True,
because there's no simple solution. There's no classroom for it.
There is resistance as well.
There's resistance. There's no classroom, right? Like I can't send you to a class and train you on computing of a particular sort. That's where the leadership part comes in, because then the role of the leader to reinforce the message consistently about the need for change, about the adaptability to change.
Talking about organizational culture, they say culture eats strategy at breakfast. And culture is defined by the people who are running the shop at the top. That is what percolates down. Under these circumstances, how do companies develop their culture, and what kind of organizational culture are we talking about when we are bringing all of these different silos together?
So, Mugdha, what we see organizations today, that they're trying to create a very holistic employee value proposition. The center of it is the culture, right? I mean, there was a story that I heard 2-3 years ago when some people said during COVID that my organization is my laptop. And that was the mentality at that point, right? And that's why you see a lot of return to work initiatives are actually to bring back the culture of organization together. And what is the culture, right? You have certain pillars around which you build your culture. I mean, and then you communicate that transparently, effectively to all the people, all the employees out there. You try to identify behaviors that link to the culture, right? And then try to talk about it as much as you can, and you appreciate that, you recognize that, right? From a culture perspective. Having a personalized engagement plan, what appeals to, for example, a Gen Z population, and that's about 20% of the population today, compared to say 5-6 years ago when they were just 3-4% of the population. Today, the generational diversity is very high. So how do you customize your messaging, your appeal to each of your audience segments? I think all those are important pillars around which cultures are being built in organizations.
As a media company, the biggest change is not just in the product, but also in the people who are producing it. How does HT Group, which is such a big conglomerate, bring them all on the same platform and work with each other without any differences?
So you see, multi-generational workforce and the challenges attached to it are very real. They exist. But there's one thing that actually binds them all together, which is technology.
True.
And that helps us because they are all on the same platform. Everything's said and done, whether it's a content management system, whether it's a Slack or anything. But what we need to do, and what we continuously strive to do, is while Andy talked about the managerial training, which is more long term, we focus also on what I call is ruthlessly relevant learning that needs to happen on the job there and then, so that we are able to produce high quality content, engage with audience and all that. The second thing in learning and this whole capacity building is showing them the mirror. Now, how do we show that the mirror? The methodology used is very simple, which is democratize the data. So whatever training inputs we've given, whatever skill building inputs we've given, back it up with data. Hey, you did this and therefore this has happened. Or you did this, maybe something else needs to be done. The last point is, which is a little intrusive, we get in everywhere for learning. So there's a Slack channel and we said, okay, we'll go there. We'll push content, learning content there. There's a Microsoft Teams channel, we'll push it there. Hey, there's a small town hall happening, we'll put learning there. So we are just going any and every. So it's not a learning where I'll call you in a nice meeting room and then we'll have tea, coffee, and then a session will start where a presentation is done. No, it's here now. So that's what we do.
Thank you, gentlemen, for all the wonderful insights and for your time. And I hope everybody who's watching this has had a lot to take home.
Coalesce, Art of the Possible, digital broadcaster, CNBC TV 18.